Hello and welcome to another episode of the Socially Numb Podcast. I am your host, Richie Leahey. Again, working on this, trying to see what kind of recordings I'm able to get mobilely as I continue to do the show and get into streaming. So yesterday, I went ahead a little bit earlier during the day than when I normally record the podcast. I streamed on my PlayStation 4. I wanted to test out the PlayStation camera and go ahead and get something out there. So what I did was I played Spy Chameleon, which I think it's like RGB Agent or something like that. It might be the secondary title. I'm not too sure. But it was a PlayStation Plus game, and I played through the first, I think, 10 levels. I died a few times, but it wasn't too bad. On my dual TVs, right now I have my PlayStation 4 set up as my far left TV and my desk that has my PlayStation cameras on the right side of my room. So I had to look when I was playing. If you look at the video, I'm not really facing the camera. I'm kind of looking off to the side. But that was a limitation based on which TV I have the PlayStation hooked up to. So what I might be doing is switching televisions to make it a little bit easier. Now, the Twitch stream is different. Whenever I do the broadcast, the PlayStation 1 has, I don't know if it shows you like the chat room on the stream or what. I'm gonna have to look through the different settings. So there's a big black bar on the right side of the stream whenever I was streaming, and on the right side is my picture, but normally I have that overlaid on the gameplay. So it must be a setting, especially because there's not really anyone chatting. I think I had I forget how many views I had going in. I think 30 something altogether. But it's a brand new venture, and I haven't advertised it, like I haven't tweeted out or anything whenever I went live, because I wanted to make sure that the camera was picking up audio. I didn't want it to be silent or anything. But it looked like it did. It sounded like the game audio itself was way too loud. I don't know if that was because of my TV or if that was due to the actual setting on the record, like if it just records in-game audio at a certain volume and then streams myself. Now, I did see that they had like HD quality recordings. I think I just went with whatever the default was. I don't know if that was high def or not. So I'm going to have to mess with that in the future and kind of see. But it's not a review of the game itself, as I usually bring those in after I beat the game. I only played the first 10 levels, but the game was pretty fun for a free game, and I think that was on the Vita. So again, if you're a PlayStation guy, make sure that you go online to see which games you can redeem. You don't want to go ahead and just download the PS4 ones, because a lot of the games I've had more fun with have been either on the PlayStation 3 they gave away for free, or they've gave it away on the PS Vita, which is usually cross-compatible with the PlayStation 4. So if you get it on one, you'll get it on the other. And even though I don't own a Vita, it's nice to go ahead and redeem the games, and I can go ahead and play them on the PS4. So the good thing with that is it gives me an extra couple games that I can stream. Normally, because they're on the Vita, they are a little bit cheaper. Or I mean, not cheaper. I mean, the cost is cheaper, yes, definitely, if I were to buy them. But it's definitely a little bit shorter as well. So the gameplay isn't as long. They are good streaming games because I can do a Let's Play and play basically through the whole game. And that's what my idea is here. I'm going to be looking at the PlayStation 4 games that I've been collecting for free. And I mentioned it before that the whole idea was that I could go ahead and back some of those up, get a backlog of games that I need to beat. Some of them quite quick, like Spy Chameleon, I think has 70, maybe 100 levels. I already beat 10 of them in 10 minutes. I'm sure they're going to get much more difficult. They do have checkpoints in each level, so if you just keep running through, you'll be able to beat the game, especially as you get more and more used to the controls. There might be one of the levels that gives me trouble, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to go ahead and try to stream that gameplay more often as I beat that game. And then once I get that game completed, then there's a couple other ones on the PlayStation 4 that I'll do a run through as I test the stream. Now, I don't have a schedule yet because for Southbound Sports, I've been doing a live show, and that has taken precedence because that takes coordination from other people. So with that, I have to go ahead and get that set up. So streaming second right now on my list, getting social media, and like I said, I still have to get the show notes for these up to date, moved over for the podcast and everything. And so I'm working on that as well because some of those go into the video comments. I have for Southbound Sports, I'm doing those first. So I have a handful of those left. And then I'm going to work on, I think, Dad Strength next to get those caught up. And then finally, Socially Numb will be last. Just because as I do the show notes, I'm re-listening to the episodes. And Socially Numb episodes are considerably longer than what we've been putting out for Southbound Sports and for Dad Strength. So Dad Strength usually 15 minutes tops. So Southbound Sports can vary depending on the guest, but it goes from 15 minutes to an hour. I think maybe one of them was 2 hours. I know Socially Numb had the 2-hour Nintendo Switch launch and a couple other things. So the show notes, it takes me a while to get those caught up, but they are coming. It is something that is going to happen eventually. It's just a matter of time. So in the meantime, I'm streaming. Again, the idea behind streaming is to put extra content out there instead of just a podcast each week that I can go ahead and do on the fly without having to do too much hands-on. I can just go ahead, hit the stream button on the PlayStation 4, and boom, I'm live. Same with if I'm doing it on Steam, but I haven't done that, and it's something that I'm going to have to look into doing to get a little bit more hands-on with some of the games there. Because I do have some old retro first-person shooter games, like Doom, Duke Nukem. Actually, Doom's on the PlayStation 3. I don't think I have it on Steam. But I have some games on there that I could stream and have fun with. One of them, or I have like 4 Rise of the Triad. I think I have a double of that, and whatever. It's a set I got from Apogee, however you pronounce their company's name. So it's 4 games that have a ton of old school first person shooter levels that I would love to play. Now some of the other ones I have on there is like Left 4 Dead, which I've been going through and just getting the achievements on those. That's more fun if I'm playing with someone. So unless I have someone who wants to come in and guest stream, most likely not going to be playing Left 4 Dead. It just depends on what games I want to get to. And now, before we get any further into the podcast, I teased it last week that we were going to talk about E3. Well, it turns out I was wrong. I don't know if I mentioned it in the second half of the show last week, but with E3, some of the developers actually have their presentations early, like Microsoft did their own early, outside of the actual times. Because I think what happens is for them, the times at E3, the conference itself, those are panel times. But I don't know. I've never been. But it is an interesting conference to kind of watch. It was supposed to be tech. It's pretty much dominated by video games these days. And what comes out of that, it depends. So like this year, the big news was the Xbox. I talked about that a good bit last week. So I'm not going to dive back into that and just give another recap. But basically, the Xbox is going for 4K graphics. Most people don't own 4K televisions, and if they do, they don't have the frame rate to run full 4K at like 120 or even 60 frames per second, because that's what you need for video games. 120 is a lot smoother if you can get that, and I don't even know if the consoles run that or not. So basically, they're putting out a console that they're going to lose money on, that they're hedging bets, hoping that people go ahead and say, well, we want the newest tech. And I don't know if people do that. Again, Nintendo had a really, really good E3 compared to the other two, and I think because they focused on fun games. Now, ARMS came out, And what I've been doing is trying to get a Switch game every so often to fill out my library, put some games that I have that I can travel with. You remember that I played Shovel Knight, and that's a good game that I got. Then the next month, or maybe maybe that was the second time I got that. So I've been getting like one a month. So March I got Zelda at launch, and then I got Shovel Knight. That was my March game. Then April came, and for April, or no, it was Snipper Clips. I got Snipper Clips. So April came, and I got Shovel Knight, which might have been purchased at the end of March, but I can't remember. But that was basically my April game. So basically, for the PlayStation games, I've been focusing on beating one a week because I have so many. For the Nintendo Switch, I'm taking a more casual approach and going for one a month. I haven't beat Snipper Clips yet because I've been playing multiplayer as I play through co-op mode, because I think it's a little bit deeper and I want to get the full experience of the game. Then next, so for May, I'm behind a good bit, but I went ahead and got Mario Kart 8. So I got Mario Kart 8, and so far it's been a blast to play. Now I haven't played through the whole game, so I'll be bringing this in later. But for what the Nintendo Switch does as a whole, as a console, it's great. And I can't knock Nintendo for what they did. Now, is this something that's going to be a long-standing console? Because the way I view it is, if Nintendo goes their route, where every year they're just going ahead and starting to release a newer version of the Switch, which is what I think they should do. I don't think they should go ahead and release another gimmick. I don't think they should go ahead and do anything else. Anything that they're going to do, they need to expand on this format with the Switch. Hey, maybe you make adjustments to the size and the dimensions. It doesn't matter the way the dock works, because you can go ahead and just have a bigger dock. If someone buys a later model, they get a different dock. Or like whatever. Now that's going to be tougher keeping them in stock. Maybe they make it a little bit more compact. It could still fit inside the dock. It's not a big deal. They just have to go ahead and make that their priority. As for the games, now most people go ahead and they pay for Nintendo games as cartridges or whatever, just because they want to buy them. Now for each Nintendo console, what it seems like is everyone buys the same games. You buy the 3D Mario game if it's out. Some of them don't have that. Like, let's say Mario Galaxy for the Wii. What was the other one? Mario Sunshine. Like, those are the games that you buy. Well, Mario Odyssey is coming out this year, and that's a game that I'll probably slate for my month's game for Nintendo. That's what I'm going to get. And so what I was looking at was going ahead and getting a little bit more in depth with some of the games. Now, I would like to have a catalog on my Switch that you can have like one of each of these games. So what I was getting at before was like, you get your Mario game, you get your Mario Kart, you get your Smash Brothers, you go ahead, and if there's a Metroid, you get that, you get Zelda, and then you have a good core set of Nintendo games that are always out on each console. Sometimes if you want a flight game, you go ahead and you get Star Fox if it comes out. So you have a flying game, you have a racing game, you have a Mario game, so like basically a platformer, you have an RPG in Zelda. So you're getting one of each of these games. You have a fighting game in Smash Brothers. If they can go ahead and pull in maybe like a Mortal Kombat or something, I don't know if they can. They just threw out Street Fighter, which I think is overpriced for what they did, but who knows? I don't know how that will sell. And I hope that doesn't discourage people, because people are putting out these false claims on Nintendo saying, well, we're not making as much money on Nintendo because of cartridges or whatever. Well, no, people aren't going to buy your games if the download's $40. If you can get the same game on a PlayStation for, $20? Maybe cheaper. Maybe it's not the full updated Street Fighter game that's on PlayStation or Xbox, but basically that game's been floating around for 20 years. So you have a game that's their premier game that they're putting out. People just seem to be putting out rehashes for the Nintendo Switch, kind of feeling it out. No one does that for the PlayStation 3 or the Xbox. So what Nintendo needs to do is get a long-standing development environment. They seem to open it up. Everyone can use whatever game editing engine they want, and that's a good start. So now they need to go ahead and bring the next level in, where they're doing it the next piece, and they keep doing it. So then they have the new console come out. And now what's going to happen is these third-party developers, if they're comfortable, they see that the console is selling, kind of like the 3DS, they're going to throw their games on it and give it a whirl. Now, as you make it more and more powerful, it might never catch up to the Xbox, which it's probably not going to. But the cool thing with the Switch is you can control the graphics. So you don't need 4K if the screen is only 720p or 1080p or whatever it is. And then you go ahead and plug it into the dock. The dock is basically just like a holder for the HDMI. So I'm pretty sure everything's handled within the system. So if they want to go ahead and release the 4K version in a year or two, they can go ahead and do that. Now, will the demand be as high? I don't know. Would I pick up a second one? Actually, probably I would if it's the same price. If they can keep it around $200, $300, and they might be able to drop it to the price of the 3DS a little bit down the line. Right now, they said the Joy-Con prices are high because of the technology in them. I mean, I guess the DualShock for the PlayStation 4 kind of went down, but you still have one in. Actually, they haven't gone down. I think they are 60. They're still 60 or 40 or something, which is basically what the Joy-Con is. You just need to buy two of them to have that extra set for the Switch. But right now, if I'm using it mostly in tablet mode, I only need one set of controllers. So if I would go ahead and buy a second console down the line to play sitting on the couch side-by-side Mario Kart racing, it works out perfectly. And then that comes down to what they need to do is open it up like PlayStation did. And it doesn't have to be 5. I think PlayStation lets you install your games, your digital purchases, on 5 different consoles. So if you own the console and you go ahead and sign in, you make a digital purchase, you can have yours logged in. You can be logged in on 5 different PlayStation devices, whether that's a PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, a Vita, whatever. I think it's 5 total. So I could have 2 Vitas, 2 PlayStation 4s, and a PS3, and those are my 5 devices. I can be logged in on all of them and download my digital purchases. The way Nintendo works, you can only download one. Like, your purchases are locked to your console. And I think in the future, as this console either starts to fail or keeps growing, what they should do is make it, they could go 5 if they really wanted to. I mean, most parents only have a couple kids. My mom there's 4 of us siblings. So, yeah, it would have been nice if we could each have our own Switch and then share games. But is that something that is going to deter people from buying digital games? Possibly. But if you buy the cartridge games, you're still only going to go ahead and get that one version. But I think with this, the cool thing is if you buy digital, you're always ready for any updates that happen. So if, let's say down the line, they do release the 4K version, and then they upgrade that game to 4K. If Nintendo was smart and nice, they would just go ahead and automatically give you the 4K update. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that Nintendo has a distinct advantage over the other companies, Sony and Microsoft, because they have a back catalog of games dating back to the NES that people want, people desire. There are still a lot of people out there that play the original Legend of Zelda. I think I saw on Twitch, I don't know if I talked about it before, but they have people race to beat the game without using the sword and things like that. And that brings in outside people, fans, maybe not so much fans of the show, but of the games, but it brings them in because they can go ahead and test out these new games for relatively cheap. And it's something that Steam has as a video game library that gives them an advantage over a lot of people. Just for their PC, they'll go ahead and buy a bunch of these games in groups because they want to be able to play old games they haven't beaten, or just so that they can go ahead and say that they have a lot of games in their library. It's sort of like a status thing. So with that, Nintendo has a distinct advantage because they can go ahead and put all of these properties that people want to play. Now, these aren't games that people are going to throw away as an offshoot. No, these are games that people distinctly want to play. You can go ahead and play the old Mario Karts. You can even go ahead and bundle them together as a discount if they go ahead and make these engines playable on the Nintendo Switch. Which shouldn't be that difficult because a lot of the games from the old NES era and even the Super Nintendo era are already out on tablets and phones. You can buy your own emulators, or some of them are even free, but you could buy an emulator for maybe $2.99 or so. At least that's what it used to be. I haven't looked in quite a while. That lets you play with Bluetooth controllers, and you can go ahead and play old ROMs. And with that, you can put them on your phone, on your tablet, and you can play these games outrageously amount of games. Like, I can go ahead and download 1,000 NES games onto whatever, a folder, whatever I wanted to do. Think about it back in the day when everyone would download music. You could download all of these old games. Are you going to be able to play them all? No. But it gives you an option. And they don't take up much space. I had a Dreamcast that allowed you to play ROMs all the time. And I had it set up so that you could go ahead and put whatever games you want all on one disc. So I could have 1,000 NES games on a disc that has the emulator, and the Dreamcast would play it. And that would give us hours of fun. Because outside of the big sports games, maybe like Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, and a couple shooters that you can play in a room with other people, there's not that many co-op games. So there's not a big demand for co-op games that in this new current high definition generation. Because they're assuming that you're playing single player and that you're playing whenever you want by yourself. You can stream it online and you can play with others online, but they're expecting you not to have people over at your house playing. Which these old games, they were set up so that you would play with other people. So that you could go ahead and play at any time with anyone that you wanted. And that's where these old properties become very valuable. Now the Switch can go ahead and not only take advantage of those NES games, but they can go ahead and take advantage of other properties that have never been on a Nintendo console. And one of those that has been rumored for a while now is Dark Souls. So Dark Souls is a property that is owned by a third-party publisher, I believe. And they have been rumored to bring the trilogy onto the Nintendo Switch. So if this trilogy comes onto the Switch, then it opens up the possibilities that other third-party publishers can go ahead and open up their series. This is starting later this year with Skyrim. And Skyrim is a game that I haven't played. It's tough to play all these RPGs. You don't have the time for it as a professional. Once you're out of college, you don't have the extra free time to kill throughout the day, waiting for friends to get out of class or whatever. So you have a work schedule, you do that, you try to find some free time to play games. But where the Switch has value because you can play on the go. I can play waiting for the bus. I can play when I'm hanging out on a break at work. There's a bunch of different time slots that I can play the Switch, and it gives me freedom to go ahead and play these third-party games and these big published games that I have never played before. So that's what I like to see that the Switch is opening. And with these digital games, what I mean by saying that you should go digital is the digital games can go ahead and be updated at any time. So if there are improvements or patches, buying the cartridge, you don't have that freedom. And again, it all boils down to Nintendo unlocking it, sort of like PlayStation. But as that demand is there, I have a good feeling that it's going to happen. Where the Wii didn't have that infrastructure, that wasn't something that Nintendo was blazing the trail on. They didn't have their own system of games that they were going to go ahead and throw open. So you have the PlayStation Network, they push it, in the Xbox network, they're pushing these games you can go ahead and download. They also have competition from Xbox with Steam, where people are going to go ahead and play their games on the PC. And what I expect Microsoft to try to push to do with this 4K gaming system is to push for more of a direct competition with PC gaming. One of the things that they said that they don't like is the mouse and keyboard crowd competing against people who only use a controller because of the response time, 2 separate controls that do a lot of different things. You can have hot keyboard cuts to different keyboard buttons, do combinations a lot faster. As you move with the mouse, it's a bigger response twitch than actually just the analog stick, because you can jump your whole hand if needs be to go ahead and bring these open. So with that, now you have Xbox coming around and they're realizing that they're losing sales for these Steam games when they're having these packages. And it might be too late. I don't know if they're ever going to go ahead and be able to get back from that. It might be too late at this point for them to do a direct competition with. And now with this, with E3, they're throwing out that they're going to have a 4K capable video game system that they can go ahead and push that you don't have to buy. They're trying to get out of the stigma of having people with 4K PCs or PC computers that they're gaming on where you have to buy upgrades constantly. You always have to do that. And they're trying to get ahead and buck that trend by saying, no, you don't. And by trying to make a system that can be upgradable, that plays all these back catalogs of games, you can get the new Xbox Pro X or whatever it's called and play all the Dark Souls games because they're already on the Xbox. You can buy it relatively cheap, even if you buy the disc instead of just digital. So Nintendo and Sony have to come up with their own little pieces of the video game market that are going to entice people to play. And one of them, I'm going to get into my full review as I play it, is Uncharted 4. It was massively hyped up. They hyped up Uncharted 4 to the point where it was like, hey, here's Uncharted 4. It's a great game. People are giving it 10 out of 10s on the rating system. But realistically, the game is a lot of just movie watching. I bet if I skipped all the cutscenes, the game would end relatively quick. Like a day, you could beat it in a day. Now, granted, you pay for it. You want the whole experience. I'm watching these cutscenes, but my girl was watching me play, and she said, are you even having fun? Because it looks like you're just watching a poor show. Like, it's a bad script. It's like a weird acting. It's not that good of a story to just be sitting there and playing. And I mean, I made it to chapter 6, and I might have actually controlled the guy for maybe 30 minutes tops. Maybe a little bit longer, but it didn't seem like it. Because it seemed like every time I did something, there was a cutscene, someone was talking, or it's sort of like I'm just controlling the guy as he walks around and tells a story. And I know that's the direction they're trying to push video games, so maybe it's something that's never going to end. But the stories aren't going to be able to carry enough of the video games from here on out. Like, people want to play fun games, and that's where the Switch is really, really starting to pique my interest, because it's a point where I could sit and play Assassin's Creed. I'm on number 3. I just booted it up, trying to get that game beat as I beat my game of the week, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 1, finally. But I'll get into that here in a second. So I'm playing Assassin's Creed 3. I've already played through the first couple. I like the story, and it's starting to wane on me. It's not that interesting. I like the game. I like how they're putting stuff in, but I'm not feeling the desire to get home and play. Meanwhile, on the Switch, I'm playing Mario Kart. I'm like, I want to play some Mario Kart. Like, I really want to play. I have some Zelda that I really want to play. And I'm not getting that same response from the PlayStation games that I'm playing. And to me, that's the future of gaming. As people get older and the demographics change, they don't really want so many stories. If I want to watch a story, I'll watch TV. I find myself watching these stupid old TV shows, binge watch, while I'm playing anyway. And they're just more interesting. The story grabs me as I'm walking my guy around and they're trying to talk to me and tell me a story. It just doesn't make sense. It's not something that I want to play. But here we go, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 1. So I talked about playing it, and I've been playing these backwards because of the difficulty. Well, I finally beat the game, and at the end I found a profile stat that shows you how long you played. And it took me, I want to say 49 hours to beat this game of actually playing. The story, what actually took me, like whenever you beat the game, it tells you how long it takes. Like 15 hours, 14 hours. So what that means is if you subtract that time, basically it's like 30 hours of just dying when I played this game. That's how long it finally took me to beat this game. So to kind of put it in perspective and say like, hey, maybe you're just not good at the game or whatever. No, the game is just that difficult. What I find out, and these are some tips I'm going to give for the first time ever. I'm going to kind of give tips on the game if you're interested in playing, because you can pick it up for relatively cheap cost. So when I first played the game, I was just playing through. As I got to the heavy boss, I did something I never did. And this was around chapter 8 or 9. There was a girl that was almost impossible to beat. Or maybe it was a guy, I can't remember at this point, because it was months ago when I played this part. And that's what put me on a hiatus once I beat this. And then they had military guys show up that had guns. And as a ninja game, I'm used to stealth, being able to go through, but you cannot use stealth in this game. It's pretty much guys are going to keep showing up. So this is what I did, and this is how I got through the game and what I recommend doing. Mine for coins, or basically pieces, and get your upgrades. So I had played through about the first 9 chapters. I think when I restarted here this past week, I was on chapter 10. And I started to play, I was at the military base, which they shoot you, and you're a ninja. And your shurikens, whatever they're called, they don't do anything. So what I had to do was I had to go ahead and stack up on cash. So I found a save point in the middle of town that I could save and go and kill some military guys and do a loop. And these military guys, they keep spawning. So I had to mine. I played this for hours at a time, which of course, like I said, it's only whenever my gameplay, actually playing the game and the story only counts for 14, 15 hours. It's not that long of a story. Like, this is what I did. The rest of my time, 30 hours of non-counting towards the story, was me dying. That's how difficult the game was. So I spent double the story time dying, and then the actual story time. So it takes a while to beat this game, just because you're going to die. What I should have did at the beginning was found a place where it might have been a little bit easier, collected coins, and then leveled up. Get yourself the amulet that gives you defense power. Give the one that gets offensive power. As for weapons, you don't have to do this to max everything out. You need the flail for later on, which luckily I had enough. As you're collecting scarabs, the guy gives you a weapon called Dorico or something like that. Dorico, it's like a big sword. Max that one out as soon as you can, because that's one that you're going to use on the later levels. I found out once I collected enough of those scarabs, which they're pretty easy to get. Usually like around the save, you can see them. Some of them you might have to jump around as you're exploring. But I found out that I had to use a map to kind of get around because I was confused. So make sure you find the map locations. You might need to use some kind of game guide to find them. But once I started collecting the maps and leveling my guy up, the game did get a good bit easier. Now, it looks like, there is only one difficulty because I played on normal, which I think is I don't even think it gives you a choice. But once I beat the game, it said I unlocked hard mode, which I would never want to play in hard mode. Maybe if it let me keep my upgrades, I would. But off the bat, no, I would never play in hard mode. So what I found out was, as I unlock these weapons, use your bow and arrows or whatever, the exploding arrows. That is the main thing that I use to get through the military base part. So as you're shooting these arrows, they'll kill the guys. There's some they have drones basically that follow you around and laser you. Use your arrows. Try to get used to using them. You can do a jump shoot, which is invaluable. So around chapter 10, I kind of had to come up with some new strategies to beat the game. I mined bad guys. They keep respawning, so just running a circle, save every so often, because if you die, you lose what you're getting. And I was in the town. There's a shop. I think it's through a green door. There's a green door there that there's a save point and then a shop. If you run a circle around that loop or keep going back and forth between the doors, you can save and you can buy upgrades. Max out your weapons, jump shoot the military guys with the arrows. They're not that expensive. And then once you power up your weapons and stuff, then you can kill them relatively quickly. At that point, I did not get the Duri Blow or whatever that thing's called, the big sword. So I had maxed out the Dragon Sword because as I played through the other versions of this game, you always get a Dragon Sword upgrade at some point, which I found out. So I had a feeling that they were going to give me some automatic upgrade, and they did. So make sure you max that one out because they do give you an automatic upgrade for that later on in the game. So it's good to be able to use that and go back and forth. So I find myself going back and forth between the big sword and that one. Now the flail. I said you need to upgrade the flail, and here's why. At the end of the game, there are these levels. They're called, like, I don't know if they're called cores or they're called something. But you have to fight your way through this tower. In between each level are these little ghost fish. They're like flying demon fish. They attack you and they will suck your life away. I died quite a few times after at the top of the tower before I made it to the safe because of these ghost guys. Power up your Ninpo. Ninpo, I think that's what it's called. It's like your magic power. So the last thing you need to power up, I used the Inferno for basically the entire game. That was the one I felt most comfortable with, and I felt like it killed it. So I powered that one up first. The second one, there's one called Fire Wheels or something where little fireballs follow your guy around. Make sure you power that up because I used those to kill the fish, which basically means that I didn't have any Ninpo left. I had stacked up. So as you're doing mining and as you're getting enough of the money to go ahead and pay for upgrades, make sure you buy a bunch of the Devil Elixir or whatever it is to give you refills on Ninpo. Because I found out when I had that maxed out, because I maxed out all my items for the final boss battle, it made it a ton easier. Because I could go ahead, hit him, jump shoot my arrows, jump shoot the arrows. Keep jump shooting the arrows to kill a big part of their health. Once you go ahead and do that, then you only need to get a couple combos in, maybe 5 or 6 combos, to really take the rest of the health out of them. Use your Ninpo and use everything else to go ahead and do that. Now, this is where the big headache comes. So what I did was, it seemed like every boss was coming in threes. And what I mean by that is that every time you'd fight a boss, there was always like another one at the end. So it seemed like I'd have to fight 3 bosses in a row. So what I got in the habit of doing, and this is probably why I died a good bit, to make the final boss easier, which I thought would have more forms than just being the one guy, I went ahead and fought the first boss about 100 times without using any weapons, like any power-ups or anything, any of my arrows, and tried to minimize my health because I wanted those power-ups for the later bosses. So it turned out that it did let me save in between, but there's no shop. So you can't go ahead and rebuy. So it takes me a while. I was trying not to use health replants or anything like that, but it did go ahead and give me the special powers that I didn't have before to go ahead and allow me to power up. So I powered up at the end, and then the final boss after, I think there was a save, one more save. I think you fought 2 guys, save, and then the final boss, which based on my strategy, I was able to go ahead and save up a lot of my power-ups, and then I fought him, and that was it. Pretty easy because I had saved up a lot of my power-ups to take him down. And once I took him down, and I don't want to say easy isn't an easy boss, like easy compared to the other crazy bosses that I had to fight. So with this, that's my review on the game. Just very, very difficult. There's not much else I can say because it took me a while, and like I said, I got the game. I'm trying to play through the games I beat. I very easily could have given up, but normally I just take a little break. So I took a break, revisited it. I played through the other ones, which is definitely a help. So people might have said it was my skill or whatever. I went through and I played through normal, easy, whatever the other ones were, just to try to get enough experience and strategy to re-attack this first Ninja Gaiden Sigma game. And I did. And it was rewarding. A lot of games don't give me that feeling anymore. Like, hey, wow, I beat this game. I feel rewarded. A lot of them don't have that feeling, these newer games. I don't even know as I'm playing through a bunch of other games, but this one gave me that feeling like, wow, I finally did it. Now, was it a fun experience? I wouldn't say that either. If I had a chance to do it again, would I buy the game? Not because of the difficulty. The story was weird. The story didn't drag me in. It was just like a bunch of random things everywhere. Werewolves, vampires, and a bunch of the other games were similar. So the trilogy, the story just didn't get me. So would I get it because of that? Probably not. Because the story doesn't attract me, and the rest of the things just as a whole package. The difficulty is one thing. I don't mind challenging games. I mean, it does let you save whenever you want once you get a save thing. Maybe if there was a save at any time, but then at that point it's kind of cheap. So the save mechanism, and once I leveled my guy up, which was probably my error of why this game was so difficult and why I'd imagine everyone else difficult, just go back and forth and fight a bunch of guys to get money to level everything up. And then the game will be a little bit easier in that regard. But that's it. That's my thoughts on the game. Thank you for listening to Socially Numb. Go ahead and follow me. Like I said, I'll be getting other things out on my website to go and check that out. I'll be sharing those soon. I've been getting my social media back under wraps. So thanks for listening. You've been listening to Socially Numb with Richie Leahey.